Lila Morgan had always believed she was one of the lucky ones. At 30 years old, she carried herself with the grace of a woman who had worked for everything she owned and was proud of how far she had come. Her slim figure, sharp cheekbones, and naturally radiant dark skin were admired in every room she entered. Yet, what made people envy her most wasn't just her beauty or her rising career in public relations. It was Adrian Cole, her fiancé. Adrian was the man who looked like every woman's dream wrapped in a perfectly tailored suit. Tall, athletic build, and a smile that could melt the hardest hearts. He had a way of holding Lila's hand that made everyone believe they were watching a fairy tale unfold in real life. Together, they were often called the Golden Couple. At dinners, parties, and corporate gatherings, people whispered their names like a promise of love done right. They were that couple everyone wanted to be, charming, graceful, successful in love. And the wedding that was only a few months away promised to be the event of the year. But Lila's confidence didn't just come from Adrian. She had Harper too, her best friend since high school. Harper was the kind of friend who knew all the secrets, all the embarrassing crushes, and had held her hand through heartbreaks. She was bubbly, sharp-tongued, and fiercely protective. To Lila, she wasn't just a friend, she was family. On a breezy Friday night in Lagos, the trio sat in an upscale restaurant, gold lights glittering above, violins playing softly in the background. Adrian, in his dark suit, reached across the table to tuck a strand of Lila's hair behind her ear. "You know," he said with a smirk, "every time I see you, I still feel like the luckiest man alive." Lila blushed, smiling warmly. "And I'm the one marrying you, so I guess that makes us both lucky." Harper rolled her eyes, though playfully. "You two make me sick. Honestly, it's like living inside a rom-com." "You're just jealous," Lila teased. "Maybe a little," Harper said, laughing. But her eyes lingered a moment too long on Adrian, a detail Lila would have missed had she not been looking directly at her. Adrian raised his glass. "To us," he said. "To love and to forever." They clinked glasses, and the room around them seemed to fade. For Lila, it was a moment worth holding on to, a confirmation that her life was on the right track. She was happy, but happiness can be deceptive. The next morning, Lila sat in her cozy apartment, her laptop open as she finalized some campaign reports for a client. Her phone buzzed with a notification. She reached for it absent-mindedly, expecting maybe a text from Adrian saying good morning, or from Harper suggesting brunch. But the preview made her pause. "Last night was unforgettable. I still can't stop thinking about you." Her brows furrowed. The sender's name on the message was Adrian, but the message wasn't sent to her. It was forwarded accidentally, perhaps through a group contact mix-up. The recipient field showed Harper. Her heart dropped into her stomach. For a moment, she froze, staring at the screen. It had to be a mistake, she thought. Maybe Adrian was joking around. Maybe it was innocent. But her intuition whispered otherwise. Hands trembling, she scrolled through the chat history. The more she read, the colder her body became. There it was, months of messages. Hidden plans, late-night confessions, words drenched in intimacy that should have been hers. Adrian, wish you were here instead. Harper, patience, love. She can't know yet. Adrian, the way you looked last night, I couldn't take my eyes off you. The phone slipped from Lila's hands and hit the floor with a thud. Her breathing grew uneven, her chest tight, as though the air itself had betrayed her. No, this can't be real," she whispered, pressing her palms against her temples. But it was. The man she was supposed to marry, the friend she trusted like a sister. Together, they had carved a world behind her back. Her doorbell rang suddenly, making her jump. She scrambled to wipe her face, just as Harper's familiar voice called from outside. "Lila, open up. I brought coffee." Her heart hammered. For a moment, she considered confronting her right there, demanding answers, screaming, throwing the truth in Harper's face. But then, an instinct inside her told her something else. Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you broken. She inhaled sharply, stood tall, and opened the door with a forced smile. "There you are," Harper said, walking in with 2 takeaway cups. I figured you'd need caffeine after all that wine last night. Lila took the cup with steady hands, though her insides were burning. Thanks, she said quietly. By the way, Harper continued casually. Adrian texted me earlier. He said he might swing by after work. Do you want me to help you with the wedding checklist later? Every word felt like a knife twisting deeper. Yet Lila nodded, her face unreadable. Sure, later. That night, when Adrian came over, he kissed her cheek as if nothing was wrong. His cologne filled the room, the same scent that once made her melt. Hey, love, he said, dropping his jacket. I missed you today. She studied him carefully. The man she thought she knew. The man she planned to spend forever with. His eyes were calm, warm, convincing. Did you? She asked softly. Of course, he said, wrapping his arms around her. You're my everything. She closed her eyes, letting him hold her, even as her mind replayed his words to Harper. In that embrace, she made a silent promise to herself. She would not scream. She would not beg. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. If betrayal was the game, she would learn the rules. And when the time came, she would make them both regret underestimating her. That was the night the golden couple truly ended, though only Lila knew it. To the world, she would continue to smile, laugh, and play her role. But inside, her soul was reshaping. The perfect fairy tale had cracked, and from those cracks, a new Lila was beginning to emerge. Lila stared at her phone long into the night, her room lit only by the faint glow of the screen. Each scroll revealed another dagger, another proof of the betrayal she never imagined possible. She reread Adrian's words over and over, her mind refusing to accept what her eyes saw. I can't wait until it's just us. She doesn't suspect a thing. You're the one who makes me feel alive. The words carved deep into her heart, shredding the trust she had built over years. Every message was a memory she had shared with Harper, twisted into a cruel joke. The woman who held her when she cried over past relationships, who promised they'd always be sisters, was the same woman stealing her future. She pressed her phone against her chest, willing her tears not to fall, but they betrayed her too, streaming hot and relentless down her cheeks. She thought about deleting the messages, erasing the truth, but something stopped her. No, she needed to see it, to feel the pain, to let it sink into her bones so she would never forget. The following morning, she sat at her vanity, staring at her reflection. Her eyes were swollen, but her face remained striking, framed by her natural curls, pulled into a loose bun. She dabbed foundation, painted her lips red, and forced herself to look composed. If Harper and Adrian wanted to play a game of deceit, she wouldn't give them the satisfaction of knowing she was broken. Her phone buzzed. It was Adrian. Lunch today. I want to take you somewhere special. She clenched her jaw, typed back quickly. Of course. What time? At noon. They sat at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city skyline. The scent of grilled seafood mingled with the soft rhythm of jazz. Adrian reached across the table, brushing her hand with his thumb. You've been quiet. Everything okay? Lila forced a smile. Just work stress. He leaned closer, his eyes soft. You know you can tell me anything. She wanted to scream the truth into his smug face. She wanted to throw the wine in his lap and demand answers. But she only nodded. I know. They talked about the wedding. Adrian described color schemes, laughed about seating charts. Lila played along, even as her heart cracked with every lie. She noticed details she had ignored before. The way his phone buzzed, and he tilted it slightly away. The fleeting smile whenever Harper's name popped up. Once, she would have dismissed it as coincidence. Now it was confirmation. Later that evening, Harper came by with a binder full of wedding ideas. I found these amazing centerpieces, she said, flipping through the glossy pages, her nails perfectly painted. Lila sat on the couch, her hands gripping a throw pillow. She watched Harper chatter, her smile wide, her laugh easy. We're going to make this the wedding of the year. Everyone will talk about it for months. Lila tilted her head. You really think so? Of course, Harper said brightly. You and Adrian deserve nothing less. Lila let out a small laugh that didn't reach her eyes. You're right. We do. But as Harper leaned forward, showing off the photos, Lila's gaze dropped to her phone peeking out of her bag. For a brief second, Adrian's name flashed on the screen. She caught her breath. Harper quickly shoved it back into the bag, her smile never faltering. "Sorry, client stuff," she said, waving her hand. Lila nodded, hiding her clenched fists beneath the pillow. That night, when Lila lay in bed, she thought about confrontation again. She imagined storming into Harper's apartment, throwing the phone in her face, screaming until her voice gave out. She imagined Adrian kneeling, begging for forgiveness. But when she exhaled, another thought pushed through the rage. What good would it do? If she broke now, they'd win. They'd pity her, gossip about her weakness, and move on. No, she would not give them that. Days passed, and Lila played her part with precision. She attended dinners with Adrian, brunch with Harper, laughed when she needed to laugh, smiled when the cameras pointed her way. But in private, she studied them. She noted the lingering touches, the stolen glances, the pauses in conversation when she entered a room. It was as if a veil had lifted, and she saw the truth in everything they did. One Saturday, the three of them attended a charity gala. The ballroom was grand, chandeliers spilling golden light onto the polished marble floor. Adrian looked dashing in a tailored tuxedo, Harper in a red silk gown that clung to her curves. Lila wore emerald green, the color of rebirth. People swarmed them, photographers snapped pictures, and whispers echoed around. The golden couple. Her best friend is stunning too. They look like a movie poster. Midway through the evening, Lila excused herself to the restroom. On her way back, she stopped just outside the ballroom, her heels clicking softly on the marble. She heard them before she saw them. Adrian's low voice, Harper's hushed laughter. She peeked around the corner, her stomach twisting. They stood close, too close. Adrian's hand brushed Harper's wrist, his smile tender. "You're breathtaking tonight," he whispered. Harper giggled, swatting his arm. "Stop, someone might see." Lila felt bile rise in her throat. She wanted to scream, but instead, she walked back into the ballroom, her head high, her smile fixed. If they thought she was blind, she would let them believe it. For now, weeks turned into months, and the betrayal grew heavier on her shoulders. But rather than crush her, it began to shape her resolve. She worked longer hours at her firm, throwing herself into projects. Her clients loved her creativity, her persistence, her ability to turn campaigns into success stories. Promotions came, recognition followed. When Adrian asked why she seemed distant, she replied, "Just focused on my future." One evening, Harper called. "Girls' night? Just like old times." Lila hesitated, then agreed. At Harper's apartment, the scent of vanilla candles filled the room. They sipped wine, laughed about high school memories, and for a brief moment, Lila almost forgot. But then Harper's phone buzzed, lighting up with Adrian's name. Harper quickly silenced it, her cheeks flushing. Lila smiled faintly. "You should get that." Harper shook her head. "It's nothing important." Lila sipped her wine, her eyes steady. "If you say so." Later that night, as Harper slept off the alcohol on the couch, Lila quietly slipped into the kitchen. She spotted Harper's phone on the counter, the screen lighting up with another message. "Miss you already." Her chest tightened, but she took a picture of the screen with her own phone. Proof. She placed it back gently, her face calm as she returned to the guest room. By morning, Harper was all smiles again, hugging Lila tightly. "I'm so glad we did this. I missed us." Lila hugged back, her face unreadable. "Me too." But inside, her promise hardened. She would not confront them, not yet. They thought they were clever, untouchable. They thought she was weak. But she was learning, waiting, preparing. One day, they would see who Lila Morgan truly was. And when that day came, she wouldn't need to raise her voice or shed another tear. Her success, her transformation, would be the blade that cut deeper than any words. For now, she would play the role they expected. She would smile at Adrian's kisses, laugh at Harper's jokes, plan the wedding that was never meant to be. And silently, she would gather every piece of strength, every ounce of fire, until she was ready to rise. Because betrayal wasn't the end of her story. It was only the beginning of her becoming. Lila sat on her balcony that night, her knees drawn to her chest, staring at the city lights flickering against the velvet dark sky. The betrayal had settled inside her like an unwelcome tenant, heavy and sharp, refusing to move out. The laughter from the street below drifted upward, mocking her silence. Her neighbors probably thought she was living a fairy tale life, the glamorous woman with the perfect fiancé, the loyal best friend, and the wedding around the corner. If only they knew. She pressed her palms to her face, the exhaustion seeping from her bones. Her phone buzzed with a message. "Adrian, good night, my love. I'll dream of you." She almost laughed at the cruelty of it. Harper's name had appeared on the same phone just hours earlier. 2 different women, 2 different lies. 1 man. She typed back slowly. "Good night, Adrian. Sweet dreams." Then she dropped the phone on the table and let her tears fall, silent and steady. The following week, Lila drifted through her life like a ghost. At work, she smiled at clients, her presentations flawless, her voice steady. Colleagues whispered about how composed she was, how perfect her life seemed. None of them knew she cried in the bathroom stall until her eyes turned red, then reapplied her makeup and walked out with a smile. Harper visited often, bringing bridal magazines, teasing her about fittings and guest lists. Lila nodded through it all, clutching her secrets close. Every time Harper leaned in, every time Adrian kissed her cheek, the knife twisted deeper. But she never flinched. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, Harper suggested they visit a boutique for bridesmaid dresses. Lila agreed, though her stomach churned. The boutique was a glass-fronted shop lined with flowing gowns and shimmering fabrics. Harper twirled in front of a mirror in a champagne-colored dress, her laughter loud and easy. "Can you believe it, Lila? In a few months, you'll be walking down the aisle, and I'll be right behind you. It feels surreal." Lila watched her, her lips curving in a faint smile. "Yes, surreal." Harper adjusted the dress, admiring her reflection. "Do you think Adrian will like this color?" Lila tilted her head. Why would it matter what Adrian thinks of a bridesmaid dress? Harper froze for a second, then laughed it off. "You're right. I just mean, everyone will be looking at us." Lila's gaze lingered on her, unreadable. "Yes, everyone will." That evening, Adrian joined them for dinner. Harper had stayed too, claiming she was too tired to go home. The 3 sat around Lila's dining table, plates of jollof rice and grilled chicken between them. Adrian reached for Harper's glass, brushing her fingers as he handed it back. The moment was quick, subtle, but Lila saw it. Her chest tightened, but her face remained calm. "So," Adrian said, turning to Lila, "have you thought about the honeymoon? I was thinking maybe Seychelles. Somewhere private, just us." Harper giggled, sipping her drink. "Oh, that sounds dreamy." Lila set her fork down slowly. "Yes, dreamy." Adrian smiled at her warmly, but something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, nervousness. She couldn't tell, but she saw the cracks beginning to form. Later that night, when Harper had left and Adrian kissed her goodnight, Lila walked him to the door. His cologne lingered in the air, sweet and familiar. She leaned against the door once it closed, sliding down until she sat on the floor. The tears came again, but this time they were quieter, less frantic, more controlled. She was breaking, yes, but in the breaking, something new was forming, something sharper. Weeks rolled by, and Lila's silence grew heavier. She stopped arguing with Adrian about small things. She no longer shared her fears with Harper. When friends asked about wedding plans, she gave vague answers. People assumed she was simply busy, caught up in the whirlwind of preparations. Only she knew she was retreating into herself, building walls they couldn't see. She started skipping outings, claiming late work nights. She stopped posting pictures on social media. The world thought she was preoccupied. In truth, she was vanishing piece by piece, slipping out of the perfect life she had once paraded. One night, Harper showed up unexpectedly. "You've been distant," she said, setting down 2 bottles of wine. "Talk to me, Lila. Is everything okay?" Lila stared at her, studying the face she had once trusted more than her own. "I'm fine." Harper frowned. No, you're not. You've been different. Lila gave her a soft smile. Maybe I'm just growing. Harper tilted her head. Growing how? Lila shrugged, sipping her wine. You'll see. Harper laughed nervously, brushing it off. But inside, Lila savored the unease in her tone. It was the first time Harper seemed unsure. Adrian, too, began to notice the shift. One evening, he pulled her close after dinner, his brows furrowed. You're so quiet these days. Are you having second thoughts about us? Lila looked into his eyes, her own expression unreadable. Should I be? He blinked, startled. What do you mean? She smiled faintly. Nothing. Forget I said anything. She kissed his cheek and walked away, leaving him standing there, his confusion plain. For the first time, the power tilted slightly in her direction. At work, Lila buried herself in projects, staying late, saying yes to every opportunity. Her boss praised her dedication. Her clients adored her ideas. One evening, after presenting a campaign that left the room buzzing, her colleague Tund clapped her on the back. You're on fire these days, Lila. What's your secret? She laughed softly. Maybe pain makes good fuel. He gave her a puzzled look, but she didn't elaborate. At night, she returned home to silence. The tears still came, but less frequently now. Instead of breaking her, the betrayal was shaping her resolve. She read self-help books, listened to motivational podcasts, and started journaling her thoughts. Each entry was a promise. They will regret this. They will see me rise. They will never ignore me again. One evening, Harper called, her voice chipper. Adrian and I were thinking. She stopped abruptly, her words tripping. Lila raised an eyebrow, though Harper couldn't see it. You and Adrian were thinking what? Harper stammered. I met Adrian and I were thinking about the guest list. Maybe we should invite more of his colleagues. Lila smirked. Of course. Whatever you both think is best. Harper let out a nervous laugh. You're teasing me. Lila's voice was cool. Am I? Harper changed the subject quickly, but Lila could hear the unease in her tone again. At night, Lila dreamed of walking away. Not in rage, not in tears, but in silence, leaving them both stunned, their victory hollow. She wanted to vanish from their lives, not as a broken woman, but as a shadow they could never escape. And slowly, she began to plan. She started pulling away from wedding vendors, canceling appointments quietly. She told Adrian she was overwhelmed, needing time to breathe. He reassured her, kissed her forehead, but she could feel his restlessness. Harper too began to pry, texting often, asking questions. Lila answered politely but vaguely. She could sense their unease growing. They had betrayed her and expected her to collapse. But she was doing something far more dangerous. She was disappearing, silently. One evening, she stood in front of her mirror, studying herself. The woman staring back looked the same, dark skin glowing, eyes deep and sharp, lips painted red. But inside, she felt different. Stronger, colder, more focused. She touched the mirror, whispering to her reflection. They don't know it yet, but this is the last time they'll ever see me like this. And with that, she made her decision. She wouldn't confront them. She wouldn't scream or beg. She would vanish. Let them think they had won. Let them flaunt their romance, blinded by their deceit. She would walk away quietly, rebuild herself in silence, and return one day as someone they could never ignore. Lila's silence had become her sharpest weapon. Adrian noticed it first. He was used to her excitement over planning their wedding. The way her eyes lit up when they discussed flowers or invitations, the long late-night calls, filled with dreams about their life together. But lately, her answers had become short, polite, careful. When he kissed her, she kissed back, but without fire. When he held her hand, she didn't squeeze as tightly. She smiled when he spoke, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. He asked once, "Is everything okay?" She simply nodded and said, "Yes." But something about the way she said it haunted him. Harper too noticed the change. Lila had always been quick to call, to gossip, to share secrets about her day. But now, her phone stayed silent for hours. Harper sent texts. "Are you free for brunch?" Do you want to try that new spa? We need to pick bridesmaid shoes. Sometimes Lila replied with polite excuses about work, sometimes not at all. Harper laughed it off with Adrian, saying, "She's just stressed." But in quiet moments, Harper's chest tightened with unease. One Tuesday afternoon, Lila walked into her office earlier than usual, carrying a box of personal items. Her assistant, Amara, blinked. "Ma'am, are you leaving early today?" Lila smiled faintly. "No, just making some changes." She packed family photos, her graduation picture with Harper by her side, even a framed shot of her and Adrian kissing on a beach trip. Amara frowned. "Why are you taking these home?" Lila's smile never faltered. "Because some things no longer belong here." Amara didn't ask further. That evening, Lila sat alone in her apartment, every light off except the dim glow from a single lamp. She opened her laptop and began searching flights, apartments, and rentals. Her fingers trembled slightly, but her eyes were steady. She looked at cities she'd only dreamed about: Accra, Johannesburg, Nairobi. Places far enough that no one could reach her easily. She wasn't running away in shame. No, this was different. She was stepping into silence, preparing for transformation. The next weekend, Harper showed up with cake samples, her laughter loud, her energy vibrant. "Can you believe it, Lila? In 2 months, you'll be a married woman." Lila looked at her for a long moment before nodding. "Yes, married." Harper handed her a slice of strawberry cream. "Taste this one. I think it's perfect." Lila placed the fork down. "You choose, Harper. I trust your taste." Harper grinned, missing the sharp undertone in her words. "See, that's why I love you. You're so easy." Lila only smiled, sipping her tea. Later that night, Adrian came by, kissing her neck as he slipped off his shoes. "You've been working too hard. You need to let me take care of you." Lila tilted her head, studying him quietly. "Do you really think you take care of me?" He blinked, unsure how to answer. "Of course I do. Don't I?" She shrugged. "Maybe." He pulled her into his arms, trying to close the distance, but she felt herself drifting further away even as he held her. Weeks passed. Lila stopped attending social events. She turned down invitations with polite excuses. She deactivated her social media, erasing years of pictures with Adrian, vacations with Harper, even snapshots of ordinary days. Friends texted in confusion. "Are you okay? Where are you?" She replied briefly, "I'm fine. Just busy." Then she disappeared again. Adrian grew restless. One evening, he confronted her in her apartment. "Lila, what's going on? You don't talk to me anymore. You don't laugh like you used to. Are you having doubts about us?" Lila's face was calm, her voice steady. "Doubts? Yes," he said, frustration creeping in. "We're supposed to be planning our future, but you're acting like a stranger." She walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. "Maybe I'm just realizing things." "Realizing what?" he asked. She turned, her eyes sharp, unreadable. "That not everything is what it seems." He opened his mouth, but she held up a hand. "Don't. Not tonight." She walked past him, leaving him standing there, shaken by a woman he thought he knew. Harper cornered her days later at a cafe. "Okay, Spill. You've been off. Did Adrian do something? Did I do something?" Lila stirred her tea slowly. "Why would you think that?" Harper forced a laugh. "Because you're different. You used to tell me everything. Now, I don't even know what you're thinking half the time." Lila's lips curved faintly. "Maybe that's the point." Harper frowned. "Lila, what's going on with you?" Lila met her eyes, her expression unreadable. "Life. Growth. You wouldn't understand." Harper reached across the table, her voice tight. "Of course I would. I'm your best friend." Lila leaned back, her gaze piercing. "Are you?" The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Harper forced a smile. "Of course I am. Don't be silly." But her hands trembled slightly as she picked up her cup. That night, Lila packed 2 suitcases. She moved quietly, folding clothes neatly, stacking shoes, sliding her passport into her bag. She picked up a framed photo of her and Harper, arms around each other at 20 years old, their faces radiant with youth and dreams. She stared at it for a long moment before setting it face down in the drawer. She picked up another photo, her and Adrian at the beach, his arms wrapped around her waist. She slipped it into a box and closed it firmly. She wasn't throwing them away, not yet. She was archiving them, like a chapter she would never read again. When the dawn broke, she left for the airport with nothing but her bags and a calm expression. She didn't leave a note. She didn't send a message. She let silence speak for her. The plane lifted into the sky, and with it, the last remnants of the old Lila began to fall away. In Accra, she rented a small apartment near the coast. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. She spent days walking the markets, tasting food she'd never tried, breathing air that felt freer. She registered for workshops, met new people, slowly piecing together a life no one back home could trace. At night, she journaled by candlelight, writing promises to herself. I will rebuild. I will rise. I will not be broken. Back home, chaos brewed. Adrian called her dozens of times, his messages frantic. Where are you? Lila, please call me. This isn't funny. Harper texted too, her words sharp and desperate. If you're angry, tell me. Don't just vanish. But Lila didn't reply. The silence unsettled them more than any confrontation could. Adrian paced his apartment, his mind racing. Had she found out? Did she know? Harper asked him the same, her voice shaking. What if she knows, Adrian? What if she left because of us? He clenched his jaw. She doesn't know. She would have said something. She's just overwhelmed. But deep down, he wasn't sure. Meanwhile, Lila began rebuilding. She joined networking events, introduced herself as if she were starting fresh. She told people she was a communications consultant, which was true, but she left out the story of her fiancé and her best friend. No one here knew her as part of a golden couple. No one here looked at her with pity. She was just Lila, and for the first time in years, that was enough. Weeks turned into months. She focused on her career, pitching bold ideas, landing contracts, impressing clients. Word spread of the sharp, eloquent woman who delivered results. She bought new clothes, tailored suits that made her feel powerful, dresses that made her feel radiant. She started a fitness routine, not to please anyone, but to reclaim her body for herself. Each morning, she woke stronger, sharper, freer. Back home, Adrian and Harper's romance began to sour. Without Lila's presence as a buffer, their cracks widened. They argued over everything: jealousy, money, guilt. Harper accused Adrian of still thinking about Lila. Adrian accused Harper of being insecure. The love that once burned hot with secrecy now collapsed under the weight of reality. They whispered to each other, wondering where Lila was, but she remained silent. Her absence became louder than any scream could have been. One night, as the waves crashed against the shore outside her apartment, Lila stood at her window, her journal open in her hands. She read her words aloud. They thought they broke me. But I am not broken. I am becoming. She closed the book, her lips curving into a smile. The vanishing act was complete. To them, she was gone. To herself, she was just beginning. Lila had always thought of transformation as something that happened slowly, like seasons changing. But when she looked back months later, she realized the shift had come swiftly, like a storm that washed away everything in its path. The woman who once measured her worth through the lens of her fiancé's affection and her best friend's approval no longer existed. In her place stood someone she barely recognized, but deeply admired. The mornings in Accra became her sacred time. She would wake before the sun, slip into her running shoes, and jog along the coast. The waves pounded against the rocks, the salty breeze kissing her skin as the sky blushed with dawn. Each stride felt like she was outrunning the ghosts of her past. By the time she returned to her apartment, sweat clinging to her skin, she felt alive, her chest swelling with freedom. She took to standing in front of her mirror after showers, not to check her flaws, but to admire her resilience. Her body felt stronger, her face brighter, her eyes sharper. She began experimenting with her natural curls, sometimes wearing them loose in bouncy waves, other times twisting them into elegant updos. Clothes that once hung forgotten in her wardrobe became her armor. Tailored blazers, silk dresses, bold colors that announced her presence before she even spoke. But her transformation was more than physical. At work, she became a force. She pitched campaigns with confidence that silenced boardrooms, her ideas bold and fresh. She no longer shrank when men interrupted. She cut in with precision, her voice calm but firm. Her clients adored her, and word spread quickly about the woman who could take a struggling brand and turn it into a sensation. Within a year, she had launched her own PR firm, Morgan Communications, starting small but with fire in her heart. She rented an office overlooking the bustling streets, painted the walls white and gold, and filled the space with plants and light. Her first clients were small businesses, but she treated them like empires. "We're not just telling stories," she told her team. "We're building legacies." Her passion was infectious, her dedication unmatched. Soon, larger companies began to notice, and within months, she was signing contracts that even established agencies envied. Magazines featured her as the face of a new wave of female entrepreneurs. Headlines called her the PR queen who came out of nowhere. She laughed at that. She hadn't come out of nowhere. She had come from betrayal, from silence, from pain that had forged her into steel. In interviews, she spoke with grace. When asked what inspired her, she smiled faintly. Life, growth, the realization that no one can define your worth but you. She never mentioned Adrian or Harper by name, but in every word, she felt them listening, and that was enough. At night, she returned to her journal, not with tears, but with gratitude. "I am stronger than I ever thought possible," she wrote. "Their betrayal was my rebirth." She lit candles, sipped wine, and played soft jazz, her apartment filled with warmth and peace. Meanwhile, miles away, Adrian and Harper's perfect romance began to rot. At first, they flaunted their relationship, attending dinners hand in hand, posting pictures online. They looked radiant to outsiders, the couple who had won. But behind closed doors, the cracks widened. Adrian grew restless. Without Lila's quiet strength, he felt unmoored. Harper's laughter, once intoxicating, now grated on his nerves. She was needy, demanding, always suspicious. She scrolled through his phone when he showered, questioned him when he came home late. "Who were you with?" she snapped one night. Adrian groaned. "I was with Victor, discussing work." "Why do you always assume the worst?" Harper crossed her arms. "Because I know you, and if you could cheat with me, you could cheat on me." His face darkened. "Don't start this again." The guilt that had once bonded them now poisoned them. They fought about money, about loyalty, about the very foundation of their relationship. Adrian missed the steadiness of Lila, the way she believed in him, the way she carried herself with grace. Harper felt it too, though she never admitted it. She lived in Lila's shadow, haunted by the knowledge that no matter what she did, she would never be as respected, as admired, as untouchable as her former best friend. One evening, Harper confronted Adrian after yet another argument. "Do you still think about her?" she demanded. Adrian's jaw tightened. "This again. Answer me," Harper shouted. "Do you think about her?" He hesitated, and that hesitation was enough. Harper's face crumpled. "God, you do." Adrian slammed his fist on the table. "Because she was different, Harper. She wasn't this." Harper recoiled, her heart breaking. For the first time, she realized she had won the man, but lost everything else. Back in Accra, Lila attended a networking gala in a navy blue gown that shimmered under the chandeliers. She moved through the crowd with ease, her laughter soft, her presence magnetic. Men approached her, women admired her, journalists snapped pictures. At one point, a young woman approached shyly. "Miss Morgan, I just wanted to say you inspire me. Seeing you out here, building something from nothing, it makes me believe I can too." Lila's eyes softened. "Thank you. That means more than you know. Remember, it's not about where you start. It's about refusing to stay there." As she spoke, cameras flashed, capturing her radiant smile. The pictures would later circulate on social media, eventually finding their way to Harper's phone. Harper stared at the screen in disbelief. There was Lila, glowing, thriving, more beautiful than ever. She looked untouchable. Harper's hands trembled as she showed Adrian. "Look at her." Adrian's chest tightened. He swallowed hard, guilt and longing crashing over him. "She looks incredible." Harper's voice cracked. "She looks like she doesn't even remember us." Adrian didn't respond. He couldn't. But Lila remembered. Every step she took, every stage she climbed, every article written about her was a reminder, not of them, but of the woman she had become despite them. She didn't need to seek revenge. Her life itself was the answer. One night, as she sipped champagne at her office celebration, her firm having just landed a multinational contract, her colleague Tund clinked his glass against hers. "To the new queen of PR," he teased. Lila laughed. "Don't exaggerate." "I'm not," he said, his tone serious. "You're proof that no matter how hard life tries to break you, you can rise higher than anyone imagined." She smiled, her eyes shining. "I suppose you're right." She looked out at the city lights through the office window, her heart steady. "I suppose I am proof." And in that moment, she realized her rise was not just about proving Adrian and Harper wrong. It was about proving herself right, that she was worthy, that she was powerful, that she was enough. She didn't need their apologies, their explanations, or their presence. She had built a life that outshone the ashes they left her in. Adrian sat at the edge of his bed one night, staring at his reflection in the mirror across the room. His shirt was unbuttoned halfway, his hair ruffled from running his hands through it too many times. Harper was in the living room, scrolling endlessly through her phone, her face lit with the glow of pictures that seemed to haunt her. She had found another article about Lila, this one on a popular lifestyle blog that called her one of the most influential women shaping communications in Africa. There was a picture of her smiling in a sleek white suit, her hair pulled back into a high bun, her posture commanding. Harper couldn't stop staring at it. She couldn't stop comparing herself. Adrian walked out, poured himself a glass of whiskey, and noticed Harper still glued to the screen. "Again?" he asked, his voice tired. Harper didn't look up. "She's everywhere, Adrian. Do you see this? Everyone's talking about her." He took a slow sip, leaning against the counter. "Of course I see it. But what do you want me to say?" Harper's eyes flashed with bitterness. "Say that you don't regret leaving her. Say that you don't lie awake at night thinking about how she looks now." Adrian didn't respond. The silence between them stretched, heavy and suffocating. Harper slammed the phone on the table. "God, I can't stand it. Every time I open my phone, she's there, smiling, winning, like she's mocking me." Adrian's jaw tightened. "She's not mocking you. She's just living her life." "Her life?" Harper spat. "Her life that we ruined. Don't act like you don't think about it, Adrian. I see it in your eyes." He set the glass down with a sharp clink. "You're paranoid." "Am I?" she shot back. "Or are you just guilty?" Their voices grew louder, arguments spiraling over everything. Trust, money, even the smallest details of daily life. Adrian came home late more often, claiming work held him back. Harper accused him of seeing someone else, though in truth, he wasn't. He was just suffocating under the weight of a relationship built on betrayal. The excitement that once made sneaking around thrilling now felt poisonous. Meanwhile, Lila flourished. She attended conferences, spoke on panels, and became a role model for young women aspiring to break into business. She was invited to events in Cape Town, Nairobi, even London. At one gala, she was introduced to dignitaries and CEOs who treated her like an equal. Her phone buzzed constantly with interview requests, partnerships, collaborations. She remained calm, gracious, radiant. When asked in interviews about her personal life, she would smile softly. "I'm married to my purpose," she said once, and the room laughed. But those who knew pain heard the truth behind her words. In private, though, she allowed herself moments of quiet reflection. She would sit on her balcony, overlooking the city, glass of wine in hand, and remember the nights she had cried herself to sleep in Lagos, the nights she had almost confronted Harper, the nights she had almost begged Adrian to stay loyal. And then she would shake her head, a faint smile curving her lips. "Thank God I didn't." One evening, Harper confronted Adrian again after seeing yet another article featuring Lila on the cover of a magazine. "She's everywhere, Adrian. And you just sit there staring at her like you miss her." Adrian rubbed his temples. "You're obsessed, Harper. Why can't you just let it go?" "Because she was my best friend," Harper shouted, her voice cracking. "Because every time I see her face, I remember what we did. Do you ever think about how she looked at us, Adrian? Do you?" His chest rose and fell sharply. "Stop. You can't stop me," Harper sneered. "You left her for me. But tell me the truth. Was it worth it? Am I worth it?" The words hung in the air like smoke. Adrian's silence was answer enough. Harper turned away, her shoulders shaking. "I knew it," she whispered. Their relationship deteriorated further. Friends noticed their absence at social gatherings. Rumors spread that Adrian looked miserable, that Harper seemed bitter. Invitations dwindled. The golden glow they once flaunted turned into a shadow of regret. One night, Harper scrolled through her phone in tears, while Adrian paced the room. "Do you know what's worse than guilt?" she said bitterly. "It's knowing that she's happier without us. She didn't break, Adrian. We did." He stopped, staring at her. For the first time, he couldn't argue. Back in Accra, Lila hosted a networking dinner for women entrepreneurs. The room buzzed with laughter and ambition. She wore a flowing emerald gown, her skin glowing under the soft lights, her presence commanding. As she stood to give a toast, her voice rang clear. "When I thought I had lost everything, I realized I still had myself. And sometimes, that's all you need to rebuild. To every woman here, never let betrayal, disappointment, or failure define you. Let it refine you." The applause was thunderous. Cameras flashed. Young women wiped tears from their eyes. The next morning, her speech was trending online. Clips shared across social media. Powerful. Unstoppable. Queen. Harper watched it from her phone, her hands trembling. She hurled the phone across the room, shattering it against the wall. Adrian sat on the couch, staring into the distance, his face pale. He whispered under his breath, almost to himself, "She's incredible." Harper turned on him, her eyes wild. "Say that again. Go on, say it." He didn't answer, but the silence spoke louder than words. The guilt, the jealousy, the comparisons, they ate away at them until the romance that once burned like fire turned to ash. Adrian began drinking more, staying out later, avoiding Harper's questions. Harper became consumed with monitoring him, monitoring Lila, spiraling into paranoia. They were trapped, not in love, but in the consequences of their betrayal. And Lila, she was too far gone in her rise to even notice. She had built a life so full, so radiant, that their existence barely registered anymore. But for Adrian and Harper, she was everywhere. In magazines, on TV, in conversations at parties. She haunted them not by being present, but by being unstoppable. And that, more than anything, was the cruelest justice. The ballroom shimmered like something out of a dream. Chandeliers spilled golden light across the polished marble floor. Waiters in crisp white jackets glided between tables carrying trays of champagne, and the air buzzed with anticipation. The annual Global Business Awards was one of the most prestigious nights of the year, a place where the powerful, the ambitious, and the admired came together. And this year, for the first time, Lila Morgan was one of the honorees. She arrived in a sleek black gown that hugged her frame and swept elegantly across the floor. Her hair was pulled into a regal bun, a pair of diamond studs glinting against her dark skin. Cameras flashed the moment she stepped onto the red carpet. Journalists shouted her name, eager to capture every angle. "Miss Morgan, over here." "Lila, one smile, please." She gave them exactly what they wanted, a calm, radiant smile, her eyes steady, her presence magnetic. The old Lila might have felt nervous, uncertain, but this Lila moved as though she had been born for this moment. Inside, she mingled with CEOs, celebrities, and politicians, her laughter soft, her words eloquent. She shook hands with men who once wouldn't have noticed her and shared hugs with women who called her an inspiration. When she entered the ballroom, heads turned, whispers followed her. "That's Lila Morgan. Isn't she incredible? She's built an empire in such a short time." Across the room, Adrian and Harper stood at the bar. Adrian wore a charcoal suit, but the years of guilt showed in the lines of his face. Harper, dressed in a crimson gown, clutched her clutch bag like a lifeline. She had insisted they attend, though Adrian had hesitated. "We can't avoid events like this forever," she'd said. "We belong here too." But now, as Lila glided into the room, Harper felt her stomach twist into knots. Adrian saw her first. His breath caught, his whiskey glass frozen midair. Lila looked like a vision, powerful, untouchable. For a moment, he forgot to breathe. Harper followed his gaze, and her heart dropped. There she was, the woman they had betrayed, standing taller, brighter, and more admired than ever. Harper's throat went dry. She forced a laugh, tugging at Adrian's sleeve. "Well, look who decided to show up." Adrian didn't respond. He couldn't tear his eyes away. Memories came flooding back. The nights they spent planning a future, the way she used to look at him with unshakable trust. And now, here she was, more radiant than he had ever seen her, a reminder of everything he had lost. Lila caught sight of them, but her expression didn't change. She walked gracefully to her table, greeted by applause and admiration, as though Adrian and Harper were nothing more than shadows at the edge of the room. The distance between them felt like an ocean. As the evening went on, Adrian grew restless. He watched her laugh with influential figures, accept compliments with grace, pose for photos that would flood the internet by morning. Harper tried to distract him, chatting about trivial things, but his gaze kept drifting back. Finally, he muttered, "I need to talk to her." Harper's eyes widened. "Are you insane?" "Not here." "I just need a moment," he insisted, setting down his glass. He crossed the room, his heart pounding. When he reached her table, she was mid-conversation with a well-known media mogul. Adrian cleared his throat. "Lila." She looked up, her eyes landing on him. For a second, silence stretched between them. He searched her face for recognition, for anger, for anything, but she only offered a calm, polite smile. "Adrian." His name rolled off her tongue with effortless composure. He shifted uncomfortably. You look amazing." She inclined her head. "Thank you. Can we talk?" "Just for a moment?" he asked, desperation edging into his voice. She sipped her champagne, her posture regal. "There's nothing left for us to discuss." His chest tightened. "Please, Lila. I need to explain." Her eyes flicked over him, then back to her companions. "There's no need. Enjoy your evening." And with that, she turned her attention back to the table, dismissing him without a second thought. Adrian stood frozen, humiliated. Around him, whispers rose. People were watching. He forced a smile, muttered something incoherent, and walked back to the bar where Harper waited, her face tight with rage. "You just embarrassed yourself," she hissed. Adrian ignored her, his mind spinning. Later, when Lila took the stage to accept her award, the entire room erupted in applause. She stood tall behind the podium, her voice clear and powerful. "This award is not just for me. It's for every woman who has been told she's not enough. It's for those who have been broken, betrayed, or underestimated. Know this, your story does not end in heartbreak. It can begin there. You can rebuild. You can rise." The audience cheered, some wiping tears from their eyes. Cameras flashed, capturing her every word. Adrian and Harper sat in silence, their hands limp at their sides. Harper's eyes burned with jealousy, her nails digging into her palm. Adrian's heart ached with regret so deep he could hardly breathe. They had betrayed her thinking they had won, but here she was, standing before the world as the woman they could never ignore. When the ceremony ended, people swarmed Lila, congratulating her, asking for pictures, hanging onto her every word. Adrian watched helplessly from afar, his chest heavy. Harper tugged at his arm. "Let's go." He shook his head. "Not yet." "Adrian, please. You're humiliating yourself." He didn't care. His eyes were locked on Lila, the woman who had once been his future and was now his greatest regret. But Lila didn't spare them another glance. Surrounded by power, success, and admiration, she walked out of the ballroom with her head high, her smile calm, her aura untouchable. For her, the showdown wasn't a battle. It was a confirmation, that her glow, her rise, her very existence was the sweetest form of revenge. And for Adrian and Harper, it was the beginning of a lifetime of living in her shadow. The night of the Global Business Awards lingered in Adrian's memory long after it ended. He couldn't erase the image of Lila standing on that stage, her voice strong, her presence larger than life. He had seen her in wedding dresses during fittings, in simple pajamas at home, in casual jeans when they walked the streets together, but never had he seen her shine like that. And the worst part was knowing he had destroyed his chance to ever be a part of that glow. At home, Harper was restless. She paced their living room, her heels clicking against the polished floor. "I told you not to go to her, Adrian. You look pathetic, standing there like some lost man begging for attention." Adrian sank into the couch, rubbing his face. "You don't understand. I needed to see her, to hear her." Harper spun around, her eyes blazing. "And what did you hear?" "Nothing. She dismissed you like you were a stranger. That's who you are to her now." Adrian didn't answer. His silence infuriated Harper. She grabbed a vase from the table and slammed it down. It shattered into pieces, the sound ringing through the room. "You still love her, don't you?" she hissed. Adrian looked up, his face pale, his voice hoarse. "I never stopped." Harper's chest tightened, rage boiling up inside her. "So what am I then? A placeholder? The woman you ruined her for, only to regret it later? Do you know what it feels like, Adrian? To live in her shadow every single day." Tears welled in her eyes. "She's everywhere. In magazines, on TV, on people's lips. And now, even in your eyes." Adrian stood slowly, his voice low but steady. "Harper, we built this on lies. Maybe we were doomed from the start." She let out a bitter laugh. "No, Adrian, we weren't doomed. You doomed us the moment you realized you couldn't forget her." The days that followed only worsened their tension. Harper accused Adrian of stalking Lila online, of secretly longing for her. Adrian accused Harper of dragging him into a relationship fueled by guilt and jealousy. Their love, once fiery in secrecy, had turned to poison in the open. Friends noticed the strain. Invitations dried up. Their names, once whispered with admiration, became linked to gossip and pity. Meanwhile, Lila thrived. Each day brought new opportunities, contracts with international companies, speaking engagements at universities, features in global magazines. She traveled from city to city, carrying her story not as a wound but as a testament. Young women flocked to her, eager to learn from the woman who had turned heartbreak into empire. She shook hands with presidents, discussed projects with billionaires, and appeared on talk shows where audiences erupted in applause at her words. And yet, she remained grounded. Her mornings were still sacred, her journals still filled with reflections. One evening, after returning from London, she sat on her balcony in Accra with a glass of wine. She opened her journal and wrote, "The sweetest revenge is not loud. It is quiet success. It is peace. It is walking past those who hurt you and not needing to speak because your glow speaks for you." She closed the book with a satisfied smile. Her glow reached even further when she launched a foundation for young women entering business. She poured resources into scholarships, mentorship programs, and networking opportunities. "We rise by lifting others," she told the press. The foundation became one of the most talked about initiatives of the year, cementing her legacy as more than just a businesswoman. She was a force for change. It was during one of these foundation galas that Adrian and Harper crossed her path again. They hadn't been invited directly, but Adrian's company was a sponsor, and Harper insisted on attending, determined to prove she could still stand in the same room as Lila. The gala was breathtaking, crystal chandeliers, a symphony playing softly, guests in glittering gowns and tailored suits. Lila arrived in a white satin dress, her skin glowing under the lights, her smile calm and warm. She was surrounded by admirers, journalists, and philanthropists eager to meet her. From across the room, Adrian's chest tightened. Harper clutched his arm so tightly her nails dug into his skin. "Don't you dare," she whispered. But Adrian's eyes were locked on Lila. He had to try again. He approached cautiously, waiting for a pause in her conversation. "Lila." She turned, her expression composed, her eyes meeting his, without a flicker of emotion. Adrian. He swallowed hard. I know this isn't the place, but I need you to hear me. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. Leaving you, betraying you. It's haunted me every day. Lila's gaze was steady, her voice calm. I don't carry your mistake with me, Adrian. That's yours to bear. He winced. I'm sorry. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But if you could. She raised a hand gently. Adrian, you don't need to explain. I moved on a long time ago. Harper appeared at his side, her face tight, with forced confidence. Well, if it isn't the star herself. You look different, Lila. Lila's lips curved faintly. Yes, growth does that. Harper's jaw tightened. You think you're so much better now, don't you? Lila's eyes softened, but her words were precise. No, Harper. I don't think I'm better. I know I'm free. There's a difference. The room around them seemed to fall into silence, people catching fragments of the exchange. Harper's face flushed red, her composure slipping. Adrian reached for Lila's hand, desperate. Can't we at least talk? Just once. Please. Lila stepped back, her smile unwavering. There's no need. My life speaks louder than anything I could say to either of you. With that, she turned, excusing herself to greet another guest. The crowd closed around her, and in moments, Adrian and Harper were left standing alone, invisible in a room where Lila was the only name on everyone's lips. Later that night, Harper broke down in the car. She humiliated us. She doesn't even see us anymore. We're nothing to her. Adrian stared out of the window, his voice hollow. We made ourselves nothing. Harper sobbed, her shoulders shaking. I can't live like this, Adrian. Always second to her. He closed his eyes, the weight of regret crushing him. Then maybe you shouldn't have helped me betray her. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Harper gasped, her tears turning to fury. So it's my fault now. You were the one engaged to her. Adrian pressed his forehead against the glass, too exhausted to fight. Their love story, born in betrayal, was ending in ashes. Lila, meanwhile, ended her night with laughter, surrounded by people who valued her, not for who she had lost, but for who she had become. She returned to her apartment, slipped off her heels, and poured herself a glass of champagne. Standing by the window, she watched the city glitter below. She whispered to herself, "This is my revenge. Not anger, not confrontation, just living well." She thought of Adrian and Harper one last time, not with bitterness, but with detachment. They were simply part of the story that led her here, nothing more. She raised her glass to her reflection in the window, to the woman they couldn't ignore. And with that, she turned off the lights, walking into a future brighter than anything betrayal could dim. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please like, comment, and share. Also turn on the bell to get more of our videos. See you in the next story.